maybe a good place to start is just, I know you're part of IMMAF, but what exactly do you do at IMMAF?
So I've recently been appointed as the disciplinary chairperson for IMMAF globally. I chair a committee of like-minded individuals who have the discipline concept at heart. I'm also sit as the secretary for the Africa MMA Confederation, which is kind of all the federations that are affiliated to IMMAF. We sit as South Africa, it's DRC, it's Nigeria, and we sit and have our meetings. And obviously, I sit there as a general secretary to try and give some valuable input.
Yeah, and disciplinary. I mean, is that just not only the athletes? Is that just anybody?
Well, discipline covers everyone. It covers from members to officials, to the athletes, to coaches, to anybody within the federation that is affiliated. So and I think Denzel White, who's the CEO of IMMAF, he said the other day in a meeting, we also need to be proactive in our discipline. So very often, we sit back and, well, if you don't complain to me, well, we're not going to do anything about it. And Denzel said, no, we need to be proactive going forward. Remember, IMMAF now is a WADA approved signatory. We're obviously taking great strides towards getting IOC recognition. We have the Sports Accord meeting next month, I think in March. Want to get our name put forward there. It's great things are coming to IMMAF. So we need to be more structured and more disciplined.
The WADA approval, I've seen a lot. Obviously, with UFC did USADA, and then most people, I think, do, especially if you're doing like connected to IOC, I think you do WADA, right?
Correct, yeah.
Are they just as strict as each other, or do you know what like differences there are in the schedules and things like that?
I'm not sure of the differences. I am aware that WADA obviously is the World Anti-Doping Association, and they obviously are in control of a lot more aspects of the sport. In South Africa, we have SAIDS, and obviously SAIDS is part of the WADA, so they follow the similar type of rule system as them.
How often do you test the athletes? Is it just in competition, or is it out of competition as well?
So for IMMAF, they've introduced a new out of competition testing pool, and there is also a testing pool as well. So at the World Championship we had now in Tehran, Albania, I think the testing pool is about 60 athletes, and I think they tested about 20 athletes on the actual finals days.
Sure. Okay. And how long has IMMAF been around? Because I've only sort of caught wind of it the last couple of years. Like how many years has it been around for?
It's been around for about, I think, I'm going to say 2010, 2012.
Okay. For quite a while.
They've been around quite a while, yes.
And what's the sort of, what would you say sort of like the goals of IMMAF are besides getting the sport Olympic?
Ethics, integrity, to make people understand the sport of MMA, rather than just this concept of this brutality in a cage. It's trying to make people understand that there is a sport. So obviously strive for excellence, strive for that golden standard. And I think also the key drive is obviously to be IOC recognized, to get the sport of MMA into the Olympics. And I think once you've got that up and running, I think that's going to just open so many doors for so many young athletes in the future.
I think it's a good thing to have it, because it's now like I've always spoken to like previous pros and it's I mean, particularly in South Africa, there was never like a guided path to get to the top. You know, when you turn professional, I mean, people were like, I spoke to Rico as well. Rico used to fight at like in front of 200 people on a mat that felt like, you know, a hard table like this. And now, you know, you've got people from a young age, because it's age level as well.
Correct, yes.
And whereas before, you know, I think you had to be at least 18, I stand corrected, before you had your amateur fights. It wasn't regulated. It was none of that, you know. And now it's like from a young age, you can start getting your colors and you can start going through proper processes that are consistent. And then once you're at IMMAF, you know, if you become a world champion, then that's a like recognizable thing. And then you can go from there to professional ranks and go on. It's a great thing, because years ago there was nothing like it.
Yeah, so IMMAF talks about the progression pathway, and I think that's what you're referring to. It's the fact that it's open doors from ages 12, because now you have your youth A, B, and C. Youth, obviously 12 and 13, fight in in a certain category under certain rules. Your 14, 15s, your 16, 17s all fight in different rule sets to make the sport safer. As we go towards the Olympics, we need to make sure we have a structured rule set. There's got to be a syllabus. You can now grade in MMA, which is
I saw that, yeah.
It's a new fantastic concept. Like, for instance, for the youth especially, for them to go to the youth worlds, you have to be a certain grade color of your belt, which means you've got to have gone on the app, you've got to have been graded, you've got to have a certain basis of understanding of various tech. Kind of like Jiu-Jitsu, where you need to have your belt gradings. When the blue belt steps on the mat, he's done so many years of training. He's obviously practiced so many different moves. And the same concept comes down to the MMA belt structure.
How was the... And I had this conversation with Rico about MMA grading. That's how I learned about it, because he said that, obviously he's now also gone and done the grading and everything.
Yes.
I think he's he a brown belt in MMA?
He's a brown belt in MMA,
yeah.
There's very, very few black belts.
Oh, yeah, that's what he was saying. Yeah, in South Africa.
We've got to get to that level still, where it becomes that same type of esteemed concept where you get your black belt in Jitsu. It's like, right. We know Rico is by far at that level, but I think it will occur in timing. Yeah.
And the younger age groups, what are some of the obviously there's limited things that you can do compared to the open age groups. Like, what are some of
the key thing for the youth is that you can't punch the face or kick the face.
Up to what age is that?
Up to 17, only 18, only the juniors and seniors. So when we call juniors we mean 18 to 20, and then seniors is 21 upwards. A lot of people get confused when we say juniors. They think we're talking about kids. I think it's just an international concept they've designed in their process. So, for instance, if you're fighting youth C, so you no ground and pound allowed. You can't do any type of
even to the body. So nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Only in youth A rules you can do ground and pound to the body. So it's everything just to try and make the sport safer, to get young children into environments where, look, the reality is when that cage door closes, you've put that athlete in a very precarious position. It can be very frightening and daunting. With these rule sets in place, it makes things a little bit easier. I think for parents, especially watching, safety-wise, you've got to be very careful of concussions and CTE disease, etc., and starting at young. All these just make sure that the athlete is protected. And they're also out there doing what they enjoy.
Getting exposure and stuff, because
that's it.
I can't imagine like your first amateur fight being as an adult. You could be 18, the other person could have had 6 amateur fights. Okay, obviously matchmaking has to come into it.
Correct.
But like your first fight, having 0 exposure, you're fighting in front of a crowd, you up on a stage essentially, and you could be fighting someone 10 years older than you that's in the amateurs.
MMA is also, so I was involved actively in the MMA administration before. Issues came up that unfortunately I had to resign and duress.
Duress? Do you want to go into detail?
No, I was put in a position where I was basically told that if I did not resign, then athletes would not be getting their project colors.
Oh, seriously?
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
And myself and my wife both resigned, which is and look, the new MMA board is up and running and doing fantastic work. It's not about individuals; it's about the sport. And obviously, I'm very fortunate to have now moved along in the process. Sorry, I lost track of what the question was initially.
About the amateurs coming into...
So with MMA especially, we started in the last 2 years. We now have development events, generally run by the provinces themselves. So it's not a fight night concept. It's not the money being made is being pumped back into the provinces to try and obviously get funds to sending athletes to your nationals, to worlds. So there's a lot of events of those nature. KZN's got a few. Cape Town's had a good few. So it also gets that athlete perhaps not the environment where he has 300 cheering fans all drinking alcohol and cheering them on and telling kill each other.
Yeah.
It's an environment where it is obviously a lot more gym orientated. Guys know they're fighting probably a 0 and 1 guy, 1 and 0 guy. It's not as stressful. Still, obviously, it is an official event, so yes, it goes towards the record, which is wonderful. It just kind of gets them, eases them into the process of those fight nights, which, if you're not used to it, it can be extremely daunting as you walk down that line. The cage door is slammed, closed, and you kind of feel it's just you and that hungry opponent opposite you who seemingly wants to tear your head off.
Yeah. It can be, I mean, even jiu-jitsu competitions, the first time you step on a jiu-jitsu mat in a fairly full, so capacity is probably 1,000 or so, but even at 1,000 to 2,000, like it starts to, literally the pressure of the crowd is physical, like you can feel it on you. So I can imagine when it's now punches and someone like actively trying to take your head off as well.
That's it, yeah. It's going to be, look, it's very daunting, I think, and hats out to everyone that climbs in the cage and is willing to take on an opponent of equal skill. Yeah, it's give credit to them, but again, you've got to give credit to not only them. It's a team event, and people forget that it's not the athlete climbing into that fighting area by himself. It's actually it's a team. There's been hours of training. You've got qualified coaches, you've got qualified teammates, ASPs, athlete support personnel, which is even your family. Everyone's all gearing you up to climb into that cage and actually be the best.
So where did you get involved in MMA? Then how did you get started with everything?
Well, it's actually, I was in the police for 28 years. I lost my arm when I was 19. So these things happen. Motorbikes are dangerous things.
What exactly, I mean, maybe you can tell, because I actually don't know. What exactly what happened?
So when I was 19, I was coming home from the beach, and I was going on a corner, and I hit a rock. And then the bike basically flicked me off, and I flew into a light pole.
Really?
Yeah. The light pole won.
Jeez.
So then I was, it's called brachial plexus injury, which basically severs up your nerves, paralyzing the arm. So for 2 years, I kind of was with no arm. Well, my arm was there, but it was just paralyzed.
Yeah.
Then I kind of said one day, that's it. Let's cut it off and let's start living life again.
I mean, to cut it off, it wasn't like if you had decided not to cut it off, you could still live with it. It's not like it's...
Yeah, you could. It would be a withered piece of...
I think Black Coffee's got the same, the brachial plexus, car hit him. I stand corrected, but I think I saw that he had the same. So because that's why I asked, he still has his arm attached. I mean, so it's not like it can fall off for...
No. It just
doesn't work anymore.
It was just in a sling, withering away. And I felt myself, obviously I was a policeman, a young policeman. I had just come back from bush training, running around in the bushes and pretending grenades at each other type thing, and come back and I was very sporty in terms of bodyboarding. And I found immediately this hindered me. So after 2 years, I said, well, that's it. Cut it off, and literally 3 weeks later, I was back in the water swimming.
Oh, wow. Yeah, was it a big adjustment? Obviously, I mean, at first to...
It was, but yes, and I was 19 years old. Obviously, it was emotionally affected me. The people I dealt with obviously treated me differently. That never changes. Often I laugh because some people will, even when I compete in jiu-jitsu, guys will say, well, hey, okay, I'll roll with you, but I'll put my hand behind my back. Okay, cool story. I'm still going to hunt for your leg and try and footlock you if I can. You just got to learn to adapt. Even fighting, obviously. So I was in the police. I then, after 3-4 years, put uniform back on, carried my gun, drove a police car. But again, I was an instructor in teaching human rights aspects. And I always just tell my students, particularly for field training, so I had new students, I teach them, look, you need to understand that, we talk about force in the police. So the uniform itself is a force. If I approach you in uniform, you immediately are going to think, oh, hang on, I'm under pressure. And I noticed that I think I probably had 3 altercations in uniform once. with people.
Mm.
Generally, I had 5 or 6 policemen right next to me to assist me. So I never felt I needed to learn martial arts. I had a gun and I had a uniform, and who's going to mess with me?
Yeah.
And then a young complainant came in one day and we started talking, Ilana, and she said to me, "Hey, why don't you come kickbox?" I was like, "I got one arm, you know. Who kickboxes with an arm? How stupid is that?" But I thought, okay, let me go try this out. And I tried it out and thought, wow, you know, I love this. I can punch and kick you. And then I realized along the way that, hang on a second, I thought I knew what I was doing. And I looked at other policemen, and I used to look up and think, wow, they're amazing in the streets. And I watched them get smashed. I remember watching this, I probably was about 30 years old. He got beaten by a little 18-year-old, but beaten.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, but I've seen this guy. You know, he's amazing, you know, suspects, or, you know, listen to whatever he says out in the streets. And the reality is, once you hit the sport, you realize we're not as actually. Take our uniform off, and suddenly we're just human.
Yeah, and you don't know as much as you think you do.
And you need to learn. I've learned the hard way. I used to be bigger. And Andrew Carruth, actually, training partner, the one day we went to Saxon Delafield's gym in Pinetown, and he windsurfed me, and there's a photograph of him actually. I'm lying on the floor. He's actually standing on top of me, windsurfing me.
Oh, like literally windsurfing you.
It's a whole concept that it doesn't matter how big you are. You know, this Jiu-Jitsu MMA, there are guys that are going to weigh 50 kilograms that will honestly beat you up, that you won't know your name. And particularly Jiu-Jitsu, I notice as well, when you meet these young kids, you think, yeah, come on. You know, I can smash you. I'm big and strong.
And most of the time they're nerdy looking as well, which makes it worse. Worse.
And then obviously my son and I, my son Luke, we were doing Muay Thai at a gym, and we saw these guys rolling around in their pajamas.
Come on, that stuff doesn't work.
That doesn't work. It's, you know, I'd rather kick and punch you. And then we started Jiu-Jitsu. He was like 15. I was 45, 46. And yeah, 6 years later, he's a purple belt. I'm still a blue. But the reality is, if you don't spend time on the mats, you're not going to get your grading.
Yeah, 100%.
And I love the sport. Yeah, it's an amazing sport.
So you started then with kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, and then through there, did you meet the people that?
Yeah, well, Amant de Brain was actually one of my kickboxing coaches, and one day he had said, "Right, guys, let's do some MMA tech." And I'm like, okay, let's try this out. And then kind of like grew into the sport and got involved in the KZN committee in MMA. I enjoy the administrative side of sport. I think there's a realm of that sport which people don't understand. It's not all about fighting. It's also about the administration processes, how to get events up and running, how to protect our athletes, progression pathway training. So I got myself certified as an IMMAF level 1 coach. I ran a coached MMA classes in Durban for about a year and a half. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed myself.
And just on being a cop, like how long were you? So I think were you about 4 or 5 years as a cop, or longer?
28 years.
Oh, 28 years. Okay.
28 long years.
What's it like being a cop in Durban? Because I lived in Durban 3 or 4 years ago, and I used to dread going into that CBD even in the daytime.
I worked Durban Central for 6 years on shifts. So I worked basically most of my career on the shifts, on the streets. Shifts, I loved it. I must admit, the 90s and early 2000s were amazing. Dangerous. How many of my friends have passed away and killed. But yeah, it's a lot of stories. But it's got a lot harder, particularly lately.
For the cops?
For the police. I think for everybody really. I think we're so aware of people watching us saying the wrong thing, not meaning to say something, and our message misconstrued. My wife is still in the police. She works in the crime intelligence unit, so she comes back with some stories to tell me that reminds me, like,
thank God you're out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hectic. It's a hectic place. I heard some hectic stories as well about like Durban Central specifically. But yeah, KZN as a whole was just very aggressive. Like I don't know how to put it. It felt like, I mean, obviously, listen, we in the Western Cape. I mean, it's not
No,
like the crime
no,
statistics are
yeah,
any
I've read your crime.
better.
I've read the crime stats. Obviously, I've been there for now, I think 3 months. Love Cape Town, but obviously, I get to read the stories and see the stats and think, maybe I should just close my door and stay inside. But no, we're all South Africans. We've learned to live with crime.
Yeah, be street smart.
We've almost accepted it as well. We shouldn't, but we kind of, okay, Makoko broke into. Okay. Interesting.
What now? Go speak to insurance.
Exactly, and off we go. Whereas you meet friends overseas and they're like, Makoko broke into, and I was, it affected me for months afterwards. I'm so stressed. And I'm like, really, your car's broke into, that's it.
It's crazy though, because we like now I've seen a big shift, especially so I grew up in Johannesburg, and when I was there, like you were aware of crime as you're too young to kind of like understand, where not to go and all that kind of stuff. But then I fast forward like 10, 15 years later, I went back, and it's like everything's just been privatized into like estates, and that's where the country's sort of going to be safer and stuff. And it's kind of like everything else in the country, like private sector like works, and public sector for the most part seems to not work. And even that being said, we live in a secure state and we have break-ins as well. It's crazy how like you say, people have accepted it now.
Look, I think also it's when you, having worked in the police, and I've worked Durban Central for 6 years in town, and I got to see some of the ugly side of Durban. The realization that it's going to take many years for our country to grow, to get out of the poverty-stricken environment, to get communities, particularly who become insensitized to violence. They live in a dwelling that might only have 2 rooms. There are 7 people living there. Violence occurs around them. Why would they not think perhaps that to solve a problem, I hit you or I beat you for it? And I think, I'm hoping that society in general will develop the point where we start realizing
it's not the way to go.
It's not exactly.
So where did you train jiu-jitsu specifically? Where were you training?
I trained jiu-jitsu with Dave Verster, Lions Den, and he was my professor.
Nice.
Trained there for 6 years, and now obviously I've arrived in Cape Town. Rico Hutting.
Reps.
At Reps is now my gym of choice.
Did you ever, I think Dave is part of Carlson Gracie, yeah?
That's correct, yeah. Carlson Gracie, and then his professor would be Marcosaurus.
Yeah, I've met Marcus actually, Marcosaurus in 2000. So I started jiu-jitsu actually with one of Marcosaurus' students, Dave Levy.
Okay.
And I don't know if the name's familiar to you.
I would have heard the name.
He's in the Eastern Cape as well.
Yes.
I'm not sure what now, if he's got his first stripe on his back belt, or I'm not 100% sure. And there was so they started the Carlson Gracie Africa Cup.
That's great.
The first one, I actually competed at the competition. I was under 6 months, and it was like, just go compete, because my friend was pretty like set on going professional for MMA, so he was competing. He was like, well, let's just go compete together. So we went and did it. But they were doing a grading as well through Dave's school.
This was at Glenwood.
No, this is sorry, Dave Levy, not for Stat. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
And it was in PE, and Marcosaurus came, and he was like showing techniques and gear and stuff, and he asked me to come to like show the technique on. Oh my goodness, it was like, if there was like 8 steps before the choke is applied, it was like I can't even remember, it was like a modified bow and arrow choke. He was like showing like some of and there were purple belts back then, and I was on like step 4, and I'm just seeing stars already, because like you see he had a coral belt, so you obviously I mean, of course he's the professor and everything.
He's been around the block a few times,
but until you feel it, you don't actually realize like how insane his grip strength was, how tight everything was. So I met him once, almost got choked out once. It's quite funny actually. But
Well, look, not everyone gets choked up by a coral belt, so
Yeah.
you've got to add that to your list, bucket list, tick, done.
that's true. He's
Yeah.
a red belt now. I've
Yes,
seen
so
actually.
good
So
grandmaster,
he's-
yes.
yeah. So one of a handful, I think, in the whole world.
Hmm.
So how long were you there for before you guys came this side? I think you said 5 years, eh?
Yeah, about 5 years.
Mm.
And then I was lazy, as always happens when you get a blue belt. You suddenly think you know the world, know everything. So then I was a lot on MMA, coaching and stuff, and then when he came to Cape Town, my son he progressed to purple. I kind of realized if he's on purple already and I'm still on blue, blue nose stripe actually.
Oh, really?
I was like blue nose stripe, and then I got my first stripe finally.
This at the
Yes,
at
yes,
the pass grading, yeah, with Coach Roberto. Why did you guys move to Cape Town? Why did you leave KZN?
The wife's job opportunities.
Okay.
And for me, I was medically boarded. So I was like, oh, Cape Town, they've got a mountain, they've got views. I can go take photographs. Let's go. And then we got a place in Belleville, and then I said, well, okay, hang on, Belleville reps. Oh, it's 3 Ks away. Hello, Rico. I'd like to come and join your gym. And he was like, you and your son, well, most welcome.
Had you heard about Rico before? Or
I
had you
knew
met
obviously
him,
in
or-
MMA, I knew of him. I knew of him obviously MMA world. I knew he had done the grading. So obviously was a gym. I said, okay, he's graded, he understands. I think he's 2nd degree or 3rd degree black belt Jitsu.
I think 3rd degree now. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so,
think he
you know,
got it the
it's-
last year. I think. Yeah.
And obviously when I got there, what a gym. It's like-minded people again. I like the fact there's a good morning class and evening classes. So there's a lovely vibe. I haven't yet tried the MMA class. I said to my son, I'm not going to go to the MMA class until I've kind of just got the vibe. I'm going to walk in there and say, right, just check your progression path there, people.
But I think Hadmi's taking that class.
I think she is.
Yeah, Hadmi's a good coach. I actually just left now because just for no other reason that I just can't make it to the class anymore. So I just said to Rico, like, while I sort the stuff out, I might just go to something closer to work. So there's a Rio Grappling Club affiliated gym in Cape Town, CBD. So I'm going to go there. But yeah, it's a great gym.
Is that the one in...
It's Bull's gym. Yeah, the one that the grading I think
yes,
took place. Yeah. So great gym, reps, but unfortunately time's not allowing me to go back. So hopefully soon I can go back to that, because yes, I learned a lot at that place. So especially in that morning class.
Yeah, I like the morning class because, although I said to my son, obviously we need more competition class, because obviously Andrew went to Worlds now, and I remember before Worlds I said to him, look, Andrew, you need to understand something. You need to understand that you need to be in a competitive zone, because you're going to go to Worlds, you're going to meet people who just have gone there to become world champions. And I remember after his fight, he came to me and he said, like, you know what, Jason, wow. I understand what you said when you said to me that we need to hone in our competition classes. We need to make sure, because that kid's going to go somewhere as well. He's got everything he needs to be the champion, and he's got youth on his side, which is wonderful. I think for me going back to administrating of sport, for me I think the biggest aspect that I think a lot of people are not yet grasping is liability, and the importance of progression pathways, the importance of being trained coaches.
South Africa's ability, you mean?
Yeah. South Africa, I think we don't yet fully understand the implication of, for instance, not having someone who's first aid trained on the mats at the time of a class. Should an injury occur, well, there's liability on not only the coach who's in charge, but obviously on a gym.
Everybody that's there.
And people still don't get the liability aspect. Certified coaches. Why is it important to have a certified coach's corner? And I think for me, one of the times I was judging at EFC, I won't tell you the people, I was near one of the corners, and I happened to be hearing the instructions being given. And I remember thinking to myself, do they understand that if that person listens to your instruction, they're going to get themselves injured and hurt? And then when you want to lay a claim, you're going to argue that the person who was in my corner was not professionally trained in the sport and gave me an instruction that caused me to have an injury. And these corners could be liable for injury and death. There's a very good thesis I read from one of the advocates doing his doctorate. Actually, his thesis was for his master's though, and it was all on liability. And what happens if, for instance, an athlete dies in a boxing? Who's liable? And when I read this thesis, I was absolutely blown away about that even a death in the ring could have a repercussion on a coach forever, because the family can lay claim against the coach.
Oh, because of the instructions, or
No, well, because the loss of income.
Oh, okay, on the income side, yeah.
You can lay claim against. You could be paying someone's family for the rest of your life because, say, for instance, you weren't certified, or you gave the wrong instruction. You sent your athlete in. In class he was concussed yesterday, but you sent him in anyway to go compete.
And you could probably argue like, okay, well, they weren't ready for that specific opponent. They weren't ready for that fight at that time. There's like a million different liability claims. And I think for us
in South Africa, I find that we still are not understanding that and the implication thereof. I'm looking at these. I don't want to touch on the white collar boxing because that's a separate entity altogether. But I'm hoping that promoters understand your events and safety acts, that there are legal obligations them to do certain things before you hold an event. There's just so much that we all need to kind of educate ourselves about. In fact, I was the compliance officer at Worlds, the last Worlds now in Tehran. And my job was to go around and basically check to see if IMMAF, athletes, teams, officials were complying with the policies in place, to determine if there is non-compliance, and to make sure that we are non-compliant. We need to obviously amend and correct our ways so we become more compliant with aspects. And one of my email today to Denzan was on the course we went on to teach coaches, to teach referees and judges about our duties. There was no discussion on liability. There was no discussion about, dear ref, if a learned person sits back in a court case and now has to sit for a year to decide on the green discussion you had earlier on with the 19 punches, they can sit for a year discussing the implications of what you took for 20 seconds to decide on. I often used to tell my students that when we had to shoot at a fleeing suspect or in defense of our life, that choice we had in that millisecond to shoot can be discussed and dissected and broken up by people far more learned than we'll ever be. It could take a year, 2 years to discuss that 2 seconds of your life. And again, with referees, that decision to stop the fight could be discussed. The athlete passes away or is injured to the point where he now lays a claim and says, well, look, dear ref, you could have stopped me. And I think liability needs to be incorporated into our discussions. It's for referees to understand, guys, and look, I would never want to be a referee. I think the amount of responsibility they take on themselves by stepping in that cage and saying, right, I'm going to be the adjudicator for you two guys to make sure you're following the rules is immense. And the risk that they take by not stopping a fight in time, by allowing rules perhaps not to be followed correctly is insane.
Well, even if you stop a fight too early, you're in the wrong. Because people, there's been a lot of things, even the Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira fight, where people are claiming that it's too early, and then people will moan about it forever. But if you look at just on that with not wanting to be a referee, what's at stake in some of these fights? Could you imagine obviously the monetary value of everything that's at stake. If you make a mistake, even
it costs that person. Not in the purse, you're costing the person sponsorship aspects that could be huge.
Not just on the night, but future prospects as well. If that person was going to win a title, then it's like their next fight. You're costing them the pay-per-view pay at the end. You're costing them a higher purse. So it must be tough to be a referee. But I will say, we were talking about it a little bit earlier as well. It's like the professionalism, I think, is also a big thing, and for people to sort of have it. I know there's already, there's long been a standard of what scoring should be and judging of when fights should be stopped or when, things are penalties, and for for referees, but it still seems to creep through, not so much at the high, or even at the highest level, actually. Let me not say not so much at the highest level. Judging specifically, we were mentioning judging earlier. I look at some of these scorecards sometimes and I go, how do these guys, I know it's subjective. So
Of course, because you're also looking at, very often, you're looking at the fight through your TV. So you're obviously seeing all those brilliant angles that you would normally see. You're also getting to see it in slow motion. You're getting to hear the running commentary. And I like the fact that when we do our courses, they turn the sound down. Sometimes I turn it on. I think Bravo actually said, the UFC judge, he actually turns it on. He said, no, he wants you to hear it. He wants you to be in that noise. He wants you to understand that when you're sitting in your position as your judge 1, judge 2, judge 3, there is that continuous noise going on around you. Distracting as it may be, you've got a job to do.
That's how you're going to judge when you get to the...
Look, for me, I think there needs to be perhaps a better system of accountability at the end of events. There needs to be perhaps a mentorship program put in place, and I know in South Africa there isn't one. I did devise, before I left last year, I did devise a mentorship program that should be started. I'm quite willing to give it out to people who just want to take interest. But yes, there needs to be, if, for instance, I made a mistake as a referee, fair enough, in my debriefing with my peers, I made a mistake. If it's the point that I need to have a mentorship partner, we should perhaps set up a system that you have someone I can phone. Look, I made a mistake. Where did I go wrong? And what can we do to do better? What fights should I be watching? How can I make sure that what I did will not happen again? Because very often in South Africa particularly, and there have been a few cases where certain referees have made a mistake, and then they make a mistake again, and then again. And on the fourth time, well, then all hell breaks loose. And you kind of go, but if you just corrected them at mistake 1, you wouldn't have had mistake 2, 3, and 4 occur. And I think that needs to be put in place, a proper debriefing, just to make us all, again, accountable. I think Bravo, in the recent course, when we made a mistake, when we viewed a judging score differently to the way he may have perceived, he made us stand up and explain to him why we thought a fight went the wrong way. And I remember standing up there, and there you are with all your peers around you, and you've got
you're the only one that
Ferdy, and you've got Bravo, and you've got Vladimir, and you've got Sharif, all standing looking at you. Explain to me why you gave 10-9 the other way around. Okay, well, this is why I gave it. And then he said, well, okay, I like your thought. That's what you need. You can't just, for instance, say, well, you did 2 takedowns. You explain further what transferred after that, what happened afterwards.
Has the judging criteria changed recently? Because I still look at things as like octagon control or ring control, wherever the people are fighting. It's
always got to be damage. That's your primary, immediate and cumulative damage. You affect what we call effective strikes and grappling. That's your primary. Yes, I drives me mad when people say, yes, but okay, you got beaten up with the strikes, but wow, look, you had awesome ring control. And you're kind of going, but okay, but criteria 1 is effective grappling and striking. If he was outstruck, he lost it round 10-9. There's no other way. But he was more aggressive. Okay, well done. He was more aggressively getting punched in the face. Effective grappling, striking first. Obviously, then you look at your aggression, your dominance, then your cage, your control aspect.
Okay, no, so I just want to make sure that that's still an aspect.
Yeah, no, that's still very much an
because
aspect.
in a close, like when everything else is even,
equal, yeah.
Then of course you go to that.
And if that's even, you go back down to your final one. And
okay.
So
but then the judges don't get the significant strike numbers, right? When they, like we see on the screen. Okay, I don't know. IMMAF might be different but
no.
They don't get the significant strikes, because I also look sometimes and then I'm like, okay, he's got more significant strikes, but the other guy's got no damage, sort of look to his face, but then he's been pieced up, and then, okay, he's got more significant strikes, but there's like, okay, this, and then submission attempts as well at the same time. And I'm like, okay, but your submission attempt was like a stupid little guillotine, And then the other dude's submission attempt was like, it's on triangle. You're about to go out and you get out kind of thing.
That's why Bravo actually made a very valid point. He said, judges need to be doing combat sports. If you're not doing the sport, then you perhaps don't understand what is a weak guillotine or what is a strong guillotine, what is a position of strength, and what is simply just you just lie on top of it. It looks,
Yeah.
So you made a very valid point about, it's actually true, because sometimes I've watched fights and I've gone, that's tight. Where I can, and then you in an environment where people don't understand and they think, wow, he's got a rear naked choke on, and you're going, but yes, his shoulder's on the floor. That
doesn't have he's got one hook in, or
it's no hooks in, his shoulder's on the floor. It just looks pretty on camera because it looks like he's holding there forever. But all the guy on the top is just busy resting, knowing that, well, my shoulder's on the floor, he's got half a hook in. I'm going to put a bit of pressure on him so he feels it on his chest, and then I'm going to make my move. But I think it's also very difficult judging from your TV, because again, what you see, what you perceive to be, is often at camera angles. And remember, as a judge, you're sitting in one particular corner, and that's why there's three, so that you get the three different perspectives of the fight in case of things I can't see.
Do they sit at different spots?
Yes, you sit at three different angles so that you make sure that you've tried to get
360 view.
Yeah.
And then you're also not next to each other looking at the scorecards.
Well, that's it. There's no collusion going on. You're not looking at each other and saying, I still remember one time at EFC, I was shadow judging at EFC, and one of the judges was right next to the commentator. And it was so frustrating because you'd have the commentator talking in my ear. But sometimes, remember, they're also talking to you, the audience. They're not talking to me, the judge. And I remember one day sitting there and I hear him, he's defending so brilliantly. Look at how he's defending all those strikes. And I'm watching the fight thinking, okay, but remember, that doesn't count. Defense isn't...
You don't get defense points.
Yeah, you don't get defense. Well done if you're blocking 16 shots. The guy still threw the 16 shots at you. So it's got to be very careful with sitting in the judges' points and angles.
And then do the judges hand in their scores after each round, or do you have a chance to change it at the end?
Unified rules talk about that after each round you're supposed to hand it in.
Okay.
I think it's mainly due to time constraints. People don't have all the runners, for instance, to do it. So even in the IMMAF event, we do our rounds for 3. EFC also does it for the 3 or the 5. I think UFC does the runners. They have all the people available. Because Bravo actually brought it up in the meeting. He said, no, he's going to give us a piece of paper, and he must give us a score, and they hand it in. And then they said, well, actually, no, in IMMAF, we don't. Here's the score. It's got all 3 rounds in there. We don't have computerized stuff as yet, but obviously that's probably projected in the future.
Do you think there's a place for like a 10-10 round, or do you have to have I understand why there's a 10-9, but sometimes it's like, if you look at the fight as a whole, it should be a draw. Sometimes.
All 3 rounds, or just the round?
Well, just if you look at it as a whole, they both did similar damage. There was no one really in control. Let's say there were 3 tight rounds, or maybe like a round each, and then the last round was like super tight. Actually, no. Take it to the example of when there's 3 super close rounds. I know there has to be a winner, but just as there should be a winner, it's kind of unfair to really be a loser of a fight that you really should have drawn. Do you think there's scope for like a 10-10 round?
Unified rules say you can have a 10-10 round.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know that. But I've never seen a 10-10 round. I don't know. Okay, well, let me. Okay, I'm not really like that much of an expert, clearly, because there was a 10-7 had been introduced. We were still talking about it on the talk show, and saying, but a 10-8 now, they give 10-8 so easily, and I realize now why they give 10-8 so easy, because there's a 10-7 that's even lower. So they've brought in a bigger gap between the winner of the round who gets a 10 and then the loser of the round. So that sort of maybe will offset it. But I don't know, there was a 10-10. Sorry.
No, there is a 10-10. I'm having a discussion once at EFC about the same. Pull out the unified rules, and there it is, 10-10. Very often, it's very, very rare. Like really, if you get a 10-10 round, you need to have a debriefing with your judges to ask them exactly what they saw. But we must understand that a 10-10 round can occur Remember, if there's an accidental foul in the third round, you've still got to give a score in. So you could get a 10-10 round where there's an accidental foul and you take 80 up the score.
Or 9-9 then if one, okay.
So there is
there.
it is there.
Okay.
But again, if a judge is giving a 10-10 for a 3 round,
it's going to raise eyebrows.
It's really going to. But I think, again, if you can substantiate your answer to your peers, and then that's all that counts. I know people say we must answer to the fans, but the majority of the fans are fan-based. They love the sport of MMA. They love the violence and the aggression and the hype that goes with. As administrator, I love the sport for the sport that it is. And I think as long as we can substantiate any answers we've got with proper valid reasons, I think, to your peers, then I think it should be accepted. But again, it's. I also believe there's got to be this continuous training. I think that's one thing also lacking at the moment, is that I don't care how good you are you training? Are you learning new rules? I mean, we know the new rules. I think there's 3 new rules coming out in 2024. So there's got to be training on it. We need the referees. The referees to be certified that they now understand the new unified rules.
Can interpret everything properly and and
Because
then
in the
everyone's
end-
on the same page.
We all make. Look, the reality is we all make mistakes. We just need to obviously keep accrediting ourselves. Look at a psychiatrist and a doctor and those people. You've got to go in certain courses.
CPD points.
You've got to go for all these points, and you've got to go for continuous training. I think, why are we not implementing such a system here? So IMMAF has started something like that, incidentally, where you've got to get, I think it's every 3 years, you've got to get reaccredited. You've got to go back on a course again and make sure that you are up to date with the new systems, with new literature that's come through, new MMA fight studies, for instance.
Techniques, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even you look at, I subscribe to, I think it's combat law, and every week they're giving out new information on new developments of sports science, new development on how referees and judges can see things, concussion testing, all those things, which are so important for us all to be kept up to breast, understand what's involved. Even just suspension aspects. IMMAF is following up with quite a strict suspension policy. TKO is a 30-day competition and a 45-day suspension. So if you get TKO'd in a fight, secondary to blows to the head, so we're not talking about a TKO, the TKO to, say, ground and pound. After that event, at amateur level, you're supposed to be suspended. And unfortunately, at the moment, a lot of people aren't understanding that suspension concept. It's not to harm the athletes in any way. It's to say, look,
On the
let's
contrary,
protect
it's
you.
actually to
let's
protect them.
protect you. And I think we need to be far stricter in terms of those processes as well. We need to protect our athletes, because in the end, that's where those athletes are going to be our future in our sport. I'm hoping our 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds now are going to be Olympians in 2030 or 2032, whenever the next Olympics is. We've got to keep just striving for that excellence, keep striving for the growth in the sport. And, we can't. The sport of MMA and Jiu-Jitsu has grown exponentially.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to see how many promotions are out there. You've got Submission Kings just had now. You've got BJJ events has them out, EDCZ all the time out there. There's so many MMA events that are just really out there.
There's a new one that just
nurturing.
actually came. I don't know if you saw, sorry to interrupt you,
No.
but DeMart Penna started one as well. Started an organization. They just had, he just had a MMA event now as well, and grappling.
Is that the one where the cage door opened?
I didn't see that. I don't know. It could be.
It was.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
Was the-
Sorry, I
No.
didn't stream it because I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
not gonna, I don't
sent-
pay for
was-
the stream.
I get sent a lot of clips. The cage door opened up in one of the MMA fights.
hectic.
No, it's look, these things happen all the time, and that's the importance of understanding where your officials come in. Officials have jobs. You have your locker room security. You have your cage door people. That's their job. Without them, and they all must be trained in understanding unified rules. It's brilliant that we've got these people bringing up new events. I heard it went all very well. They had Muay Thai in there as well.
They had Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. They had
they had grappling.
MMA, grappling. So yeah. So I think it was Cameron Pritchard and Dylan Carrera Miguel were for the over 75 title, and I think
Cameron's
it was
a beast, isn't he? Didn't he win?
He won. Yeah. He's yeah. Okay, but Dylan, I went and rolled at Creon. I don't know how you say Creonti or their gym. That's Johan Westhuizen, Christian Kamp, and Dylan. They started that gym. I went there once. And listen, Dylan's, I mean, that guy's level is crazy.
Well, I think the levels of everybody, I think it's insane when you see some of those guys out there that are just, look at Luke Griffith.
Yeah, crazy, eh? Especially in the last, since he went to America. But even before he went to America, but since he's gone, I mean.
Well, we remember Luke and I were talking about him coming as a blue belt to Ground Quest in Durban. And there came this tall guy, sat by himself the whole time. He was like, there's Luke. I know who Luke is. I know my own son, Luke. And then I watched him compete. And it's like, he was a blue belt then. I was like, whoa. This guy came in, walked in, smashed everybody and went home. And now look where he is. And I think this comes back to one of my discussions with you, I think, once before. These are elite athletes. Why are elite athletes not being given their project colors?
Yeah.
In MMA, they're doing it. They've been doing it since I'm going to say 2016, but I could be wrong. I think it's from then. These are the top of the top. They are the elite athletes. SASCOC recognizes elite athletes. Why aren't we in positions, in Jiu-Jitsu especially, that we are now saying, hang on, guys, if you do X number of events, or you've graded or ranked, let's have ourselves a nationals. Let's get these people representing our country, not their gym or themselves, and let's give them the protocol colors. Rugby does it, cricket does it. So
almost every other sport does it pretty much.
We all do it. It's just, it boils down to, as someone taken the paperwork, the forms, and completed them, and handed them in, and said, these people are going off to ADCC in Poland, for instance, to represent South Africa. Yes, they're going as individuals, but they are representing our country, because you see South Africa's written in, the guys have the flags everywhere. Let's give them what they deserve. I mean, that is the pinnacle of your sporting careers, to have your project colors.
How do you, who has the authority to do that? Who would you go and approach?
So in Jiu-Jitsu, for instance, Jiu-Jitsu falls under MASA. So they would need to complete the documentation and give it to MASA.
Is MASA part of IMMAF?
No, MASA. In South Africa, you have the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. They've then given SASCOC control of all sport in South Africa. And then under SASCOC, there are all the various federations. And then back in the day, MASA, Martial Arts South Africa, they kind of said they'll take all the combat sports that aren't IOC affiliated yet. So they took kickboxing, they took MMA, they took
Muay Thai and
ninja, star throwing, taekwondo, stuff.
Everything that's not in
they're not
Olympics.
IOC. Let's put it all together, and it makes brilliant sense. The constitution, and then the federation under they then create their own federation, like MMA South Africa. So MMA South Africa is affiliate to MASA. MASA is affiliate to SASCOC. MASA or MMA SA is also affiliate to IMMAF.
Okay.
So the government recognizes those people that are internationally recognized as well.
So MMA SA is specifically MMA, and then MASA is everything else that's not.
MMA SA falls under MASA.
Okay, so MMA still
They still report to MASA. Look, there is a debate issue because I personally believe that MMA South Africa now is strong enough and has enough ability to say to SASCOC, look, recognize us as a separate and private federation. Yes, we're not IOC yet, but we are affiliated to IMMAF, who is on the path to IOC recognition. We have MMSA deals with your pros and your amateurs. You've got guys like Drickers Duplessis out there.
Cameron also came through.
JP Bay, the list continues. Surely we're strong enough to stand on our own than have to reporting under somebody else. But that's the politics for the board to deal with, not for me. So, Jiu-Jitsu falls under MASA as well. So they would write the documentation to MASA. MASA in turn would forward it to SASCOC. And if the if, for instance, they are representing our country, if it is a international event, if obviously the athlete has met the prescribed requirements of being an elite, considered an elite athlete, then I don't see why they wouldn't give them the colours.
So do you think it's just an admin thing that they don't want to go through the paperwork of it?
Well,
or like probably there's some politics as well, I would imagine.
No, I think it's more the admin work. Or we have to look at the constitution. We have to obviously look at the Jiu-Jitsu Grappling Federation's constitution. Does it have any part that gives athletes the opportunity to get the colours? We've got to look at the progression pathway also for an athlete. I start Jiu-Jitsu as a white belt. My end goal could be to represent my country at the Worlds. But why aren't you allowing or recognizing me as I go through the progression, the pathway?
Do other countries have people? I don't think anyone in the world does it, do they? I mean, I know at ADCC and other competitions, you'll see the flag on the side here. Like Luke had his South African flag, just to show where he's from.
He's from, yes.
Yeah.
Look, let's look at IMMAF Worlds, for instance. South Africa gets a protocol. So we, in South Africa, if you're going to Worlds and you're representing, irrespective of you are, it's your very first fight. You obviously got your gold or your silver. You've been selected part of the team, and off you go. You get your protocols. Do other teams in the world have the same type of thing? Not too sure. America, for instance, definitely not, because I see America, they have very much, it's kind of like a club concept almost. But we're not worried about other worlds. We worry about us. We have the ability of our athletes to get their protocols. It's our elite athletes. It's the pinnacle of amateur sport. Remember, when they're competing in this event, they're not earning a contractual salary. They're earning prize money, which means you can. There's nothing stopping you from earning prize money and still getting your colours. It's a discussion that I think someone needs to say, let's recognize these guys.
I mean, who's the person that controls Massa in South Africa? Is it
Massa would be Louise Fires.
Okay.
She's in charge of Massa, and obviously Kurt, I think, is
Kurt, because I thought Kurt was. I've been wanting to speak to Kurt anyway, like about just about everything. So maybe it's a good question to ask him why.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. If you know, to me, it's I don't see why not. It might have to do with the rankings. Maybe we need to look at ranking systems, or maybe we need to have not necessarily a promotion event. We need to have a national, right, guys? This is going to be your national event. If you're selected, because also the problem is, I think, is that I have 40,000 rand in my pocket. I'm a blue belt. I want to go and attend Worlds at Masters level. Who's stopping me? Well, no one. I pay my money and I can go enter. I'm going to be world champion. No, I'm not. I'm not an elite athlete. I just have 40,000 rand to put down to pay me.
Did you have to get an invite to some of those competitions? Because I remember now,
for the polo, but I think for Worlds.
No, for polo, no, that's different because ADCC. But for Worlds, because I was looking at the because they still select a team. Like for all intents and purposes, it looks like a team gets selected.
Yes.
I mean, like now, that's where the rankings come into it. Because you look at a guy like Fani, was first in the country. He won. He's a brown belt, won the black belt division.
From Angolan. Well, I mean, those Angolans are super strong.
But he's officially ranked number 1 in the country. Didn't get selected, didn't even get told, no invite, nothing like that. And then a guy like Jason Durant and listen, that guy is
he's also
has to be the best blue belt in the country.
Of course.
I mean, I don't know.
Blue belt or purple belt?
No, he's blue belt. Well, I know what you're saying, but his level is.
I've seen it. It's brilliant.
It's way above blue belt. I mean, and
it's brilliant.
The thing is, he is probably the best. Must be the best person. I say probably only because I don't know what other blue belts are out there that could maybe challenge him. But I would imagine none. No others really. No, not none, but very few. I mean, the guy's winning Submission Kings. He beat Cameron in 2 comps.
Yes.
Cameron, high-level brown belt. So very deserving to go. But I don't know what his ranking was, but it was like in like 400 and something. Okay. So on actual ability, on what he's done in previous comps and things like that, 100% deserves to go. But then the rankings like kind of really don't make any sense because Fani doesn't even get asked to go. Ask, are you interested? Ranked number 1. someone that's 400th in the world is selected to go. So on a rankings basis, it makes zero sense. And I think if you then have that structure and you say, okay, listen, guys, if you want to get your pro tier colors, you go do the regional comp, then you go do the AJP nationals, and then from the nationals, based off the points you've accumulated or based off the winner of this division, then you get selected
And
as
then,
a team.
then also a team selection. So you'll have a selector who'll say, look, we're taking Fani, for instance, because X, Y, and Z. You need a team selection. Then you need to have team training of sorts. Look, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work if you not understanding that it's no longer a club issue. With MMA particularly, a lot of times, a lot of clubs kind of didn't get this whole concept that, well, I'm not your coach anymore. So-and-so is your coach. Well, because that's how national teams work. We can't. Rugby, you belong to a certain club. Yes, that's your coach. But when you go to,
National
when you play for South Africa, that's your coach. Deal with it. No reason that you can't go listen to your coach for advice and stuff. And Andrew will tell us from reps, he's got top coaches, but at Worlds, he's got another coach. And I said to him also, listen to the coach at Worlds. Take cognizance of what your coaches at home taught you. Listen to what the new coach says and kind of get out there and put it all together and do what you can do.
No, you got to do what your coach tells you. You got to have one person that or now in this case multiple, but in one per event that like you trust, and you go with what they say. And it might not work out, but you can't be thinking about, is this the right thing to do? Should I be doing something else? You got to just listen to your coach and stick with it. But how did that would be a good question to maybe if I can get Kurt on to just to ask him, because it was interesting when you voiced.
Isn't Steve also the secretary? I think.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Bazad.
I'll be honest with you.
Name. Yeah, I'm sure I saw somebody.
I don't know. But in terms of South Africa now at the IMMAFs, like how have we been doing in the last couple of years compared to? Because I've seen we've had a couple of world champions.
Yes, we've taken big teams across and not done as well as we could have. Multiple reasons. I think South Africa still is very much, my personal belief, is we still operate in an I'm going to use old school system of training, perhaps.
Which is what?
We're much strikers. Bang, bang, strike. If we're going to go ground, it's going to be kind of jiu-jitsu orientated. Whereas a lot of these other countries are multiple sport based. Tajikistan, for instance, the one guy was telling us he had 200 fights last year.
How old is he?
He was like 21 years old, something like that.
That's crazy.
But it's over 200 combat sports fights. So it's jiu-jitsu, it's sambo, it's boxing, it's wrestling. They're just so competitively based. Whereas our guys are getting a fight every 3 months if they get invited.
Yeah, if they do the trials, probably the most fighting they get to do in a year.
Yes.
It's a stark difference.
And that's only if you go. It's just. I think South Africa we still need to be a lot more scientific. I believe. We're seeing it now with our pro levels. You're seeing like Dirk you watch his training videos. They've got multiple people helping with different aspects. A lot of our smaller MMA clubs, it's kind of, right, I'm the coach and I'm going to teach you everything. I'm going to teach you from your weight loss management through to your let's talk about your life. Psychology lessons, and perhaps we need to start having this concept that we need to say, right, I'm a coach in this sport for tech, and perhaps there's another coach who's actually involved in another part of the sport. Again, I use Andrew because that's my gym at the moment. I see he's doing, he's doing the kickboxing, he's doing the boxing, he's doing the jiu-jitsu, he's doing the MMA, and that will kind of give you a lot better base to work on.
No, fair enough. I think in all combat sports, I think even like jiu-jitsu shown it now, it just takes a couple of people to go and show that it's possible.
100%.
And then to bring back that knowledge. That's what I think so great about Lucas and Cameron, like they're giving back as well. When I spoke to Cameron as well, they've got versus promotions.
Correct.
They at all the EFC events pretty much. I mean, you see Drickus there most of the time if he's not training for a fight. They very personable, approachable. They want to give back, and that's what it's going to take. Is have these people that have done it, give back and continue to give back.
We just need to perhaps give back more to the federation, because I think also the federation has control of a lot more avenues of the sport. You look at districts. So districts is obviously in your sports confederates. You want to try and get the sport out to many districts. A lot of times these fight night promotions are very, we don't take enough consideration for a lot of the people that perhaps don't have the opportunities, don't have the shin guards, so they can't really train properly. I think a lot of times we need to get promotions perhaps more active involved in trying to bring the sport right down to ground level. And the federation needs that help. The federation has no money coming in. It's got your subs money coming in. It's got money it might make on a tournament event. And I think promoters particularly can help in trying getting the sport out more, even jiu-jitsu as well, just to try and get more people actively involved in the sport and just watch it grow from there. I sit now with the Africa directors and I listen to how various countries are trying to grow the sport as well. And everyone's trying their absolute hardest. They're all trying new ideas, new thought processes, just to try and get the sport recognized within their countries, and to grow the sport so that everyone can do it. Because then that's what MMA, for instance, is a sport. And when you see it as this way to develop yourself as a human being, get out there, have fun, train. There are only selective few. There's not many Drickuses out there. But there are a lot of athletes out there who can get to at least the top of their pinnacle, which could be just even winning a versus fight night,
Yeah.
That could be their level. But, yeah.
Are you going to compete at all next year? I know you said your son's competing, but are you going
to
compete?
Yes, he's supposed to compete in January. Yeah, probably. It's just like under pressure question.
No, I'm just wondering.
Am I supposed to write down? Yes. Are we in the same weight division? I think I could beat you.
Hey, are we in the same? Well, I don't know if we're in the same. I know we're in the same. Yeah, we're both pretty well. So yeah. Are you? I mean, is that something you do regularly? I mean, are you looking at still?
I did it. Then I picked up a lot of becoming. The problem is becoming a coach sometimes, or becoming administrator in sport. I suddenly sat back a lot. And I love coming out to the new gym because I'm in Cape Town and I'm the student. My guys will tell you my warm-up classes, for instance, back home, you died. Because that's how you grow, and then we teach tech. But first you must die, and then that's the thing where it's a group dynamics. You break a group down by destroying them, and you watch themselves build themselves up. It's so I kind of got lazy. And now I'm trying to be more active. So the answer to the question is yes, I will enter in January and see who I can beat.
How difficult, or what are the what is your game like? Because I've never rolled with you. I've never seen you roll.
I'm normally filming.
Yeah, I think one class I might have been at, but you were sitting on the outside. I think and then I think I rolled with Luca in that class.
Yes.
I forget.
He said you couldn't believe how strong you were.
Really?
It's just gunk.
That's one of the benefits of also having gears like you.
Yes,
the grips and stuff it's nice. It's not nice when you're on the receiving end.
No.
But it's nice when you're. I mean, hey, sometimes you're the nail, sometimes you're the hammer. It's always good to be the hammer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm literally the nail every day. But I enjoy it.
What is your game like? I mean, what are you?
Well,
what are you looking to try to?
If I lie on my right side, then I always love watching people trying to go for the armbar. And like, well, now what?
Yeah.
My gameplay generally, if I'm able to get out from underneath, which generally is where I often sit, I love footlocks. They'll be my
Why?
go-to.
It's just something you.
I think because I can use both my legs to trap the knee, and then it's just a question of
getting it
underneath, and then obviously we all know it's not the strength of that, it's the technique of applying the slow pressure on that little part of your calf that goes, ow.
I can imagine now because it's you have to obviously use your legs a lot more
Yeah.
in like that game. So do you then like when the technique is taught in a class, do you then like adapt it obviously to your
Well, yes. So
style?
I'm very fortunate. I had a lot of my teammates in Durban that would obviously come and help me. Dave Verster, my professor, would obviously help me, or he would come around and say, look, let's just amend this. I'm very fortunate. Luke has a very good understanding of what my abilities are. So he'll obviously, that doesn't work, you know. You need to change it. And even here at the New York, I've got Vim and even Hermie comes, like, no, well, that doesn't work for you. Let's just try this option. You know, and it's amazing that they're very good at understanding. I think that's probably the level of belt structure that they simply, well, hang on, we can master. You can do a move 15 different ways. Here's one of the ways you can do it without having to use the left arm, for instance. Yeah, no, it's look, I lost, the last time I competed was in Camps Bay and I was 111 kilograms and now I'm 94.
Oh, wow.
So
Well done.
I'm hoping it'll be easier. It won't because I'll be faster.
894, I think, is the AJP. We were wondering about the weight, and that's why for me it was such an awkward thing when I was in like 106. I couldn't cut down to 94. I mean, I can maybe at a stretch, but
Yeah.
but
But then
then
you're going to be so dead. Because maybe you weigh on the same day, you're literally going to go fighting.
and then the next
Yeah.
day for Nogi. So then but then when you're in the weight class above, particularly at AJP that time, people were cutting to the 120. So then you're kind of like stuck in the middle and screwed when you go to either one. So okay, and did you how many comps have you done throughout the years?
I've done Grand Quest, I think about 3 or 4 times. Fell asleep as well. That's always nice.
Oh really?
Had a good nap, yes.
What'd you get caught with?
Rear naked choke.
Oh.
No, but and it's a progression pathway again because the person who did to me, I used to train or be with him in coaching when he was like 13, 14. So for him, I think it was quite a cool thing, choking out this old bully.
Yeah.
Was rear naked choke. Again, the problem with rear naked choke is that I remember seeing Dave over there, and I thought it's fine. Shoulders to the floor, I'm okay. I know what I'm doing, I'm fine. And then when I woke up, I had Dave holding my legs, and I was upset because I was in the middle of a fight. I did not understand how the hell he got to be there holding my legs when I was fighting. So yeah, I fell asleep there. It was great fun. My daughter was watching and my son was watching, much to their stress.
Is that the first comp they saw you do?
No, it was about the 3rd comp, but they've never seen me fall asleep.
Sure.
And then it was shaking around, like, you know.
How long were you out for, do you know?
Oh, on the video, it's a couple of seconds. I think on the video, it's maybe like 5-6 seconds. But there also as well, the referee was on the wrong side. So William Oberholzer, he was actually on the other mat. And he was watching me, and he happened to see me fall asleep. And he actually came running across the mat. And it's funny, you see him run across the mat to come to tell the referee that I'm sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's lucky, eh?
Yeah, so he was there to watch me sleep. And then I've competed twice in gi. One in Camps Bay and one in Stellenbosch.
Okay. In Stellenbosch now, what was the one, Alpha or?
No, it was one of the
AJP type.
One of that type, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
It was my first gi comp then. And like I think it was very nerve-wracking because, you know, obviously I can't even tie my own belt.
Yeah.
So I tie my belt and then they make you go sit there and you wait and all these crowds behind you cheering the fight in front of you. And you kind of look to your left and there's your opponent glaring at you from the other side, like, you know.
My worst is when they're friendly and it's like, why are you being, are you like trying to put my guard down or like, but it's actually, you know what, like you should, it's easier said than done, but you should try to, and John Danaher actually said this, and this is where it clicked with me, is like, it's just another day that you're rolling. Just see it as that way.
I shouldn't be that pressure. With jiu-jitsu, yes. I know I've competed about 15 times for kickboxing. So I did kickboxing comps for the police. That's why actually I met Drickus du Plessis at one of our police comps up in Joburg. He actually came, so we had a team that they brought across, and he was one of the kickboxers that came to fight. And he absolutely destroyed this young little policeman. Well, he was himself young, and he just killed this poor policeman. It was funny watching. But yeah, so jiu-jitsu I find it's easier. It's more, you can more relax. Kickboxing, MMA, I think you have to have that little bit of hype in yourself.
There's got to be aware at least what's
Yeah,
happening, because
you
you
know
can
the
go
guy's going to
out.
punch you in the head and it's going to be hot sore.
Yeah.
There's a video clip of me getting knocked out on my feet virtually in kickboxing. I got kicked in the head. Obviously, because these people decide they'll always punch me on the left.
Yeah.
You know, it's like no one's punch the right, always the left. So I got kicked in the head. I remember going down. Hindsight, many years later, I've now realized the signs of concussion, and perhaps the referee should have stopped it. And I remember I blanked out for a brief second. Then I kind of woke up. I was looking at my feet, but I was still standing there.
So
It was
you were
flash.
out on your feet.
Yeah, the flash. You know the flash thing. You
Yeah.
gunk down, and I carry on fighting. It was fun.
Did you finish the fight, or
Yeah, I ended up losing, but I finished the fight.
by decision? Or,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, kickboxing was like kind of like yeah.
So have you got signs? So you say you got signs of? Do you think you got signs of concussion from?
No, I suffered from
from that
PTSD
or-
from the police, but that's separate altogether.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, it's
Imagine,
funny.
I mean, it's-
I think in my police, look, it's very funny when you go to Bri sometimes back in the day, and you'd go. I still remember commenting one day. You go to Bri, and you look around a table of say 20 guys, and you're kind of like, well, who hasn't shot someone yet? You know, it's a whole different concept. I remember one day we got shot at. A friend of mine, we were attending a complaint, and I got open fire from the university side, the tech building. And
How far away was he?
I don't know, probably about 30, 40 meters up in the
Oh, wow.
shooting from the top there. And I remember my partner, we dived behind, obviously, engine block, and we were still laughing because it was we dove behind it was a BMW or a Merc. I think it was a Merc, and we're laughing that we're hiding behind the Merc. You know, how much damage is it going to cost if it hits us? And, I think in my career I got shot at 7 times altogether.
Jeez, you ever hit
Yeah.
or?
No.
Luckily not. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I just remember that. So I've actually got so when I was done studying, I went to go work in Bahrain for six months or so. Came back to South Africa and then got a job and moved to KZN. I stayed in Westville.
Yeah.
And so I move in. My mom came to like help me move in and stuff and settle in. I think she was there for like a weekend or so. Had to go to work on the Monday, first day at work. So I'd been there 2 or 3 days. Wake up in the morning and like I'm near the M13, I forget which runs through down towards
it's M13,
Mgeni,
yes,
I
yeah, I
think
think
up
it's
towards Pinetown.
M13 or M19, one of those two.
Yeah, one of the two, yeah. And I just remember hearing hooting and I go, geez, man, like, are we that close to the highway? You know, because early morning I'm thinking people hooting at each other and hooting. And I drive out and it's a dude in my street's been hooting up and down. And he's like, we've just been robbed. We've been robbed. You guys got to tell everybody. So I'm like, okay, well, if it was me.
Is this pre-WhatsApp groups?
No, it was a WhatsApp group. He was actually shouting. I didn't think people would realize, put it on the group. It's like all he was shouting. So there was obviously a community watch group. So I thought, you know what, listen, I know it could be a dangerous situation, but if it was me shouting for help, I would want someone to come help. So maybe no one's helped. So I drove up there. And then I walk up and then the police were already there. So I don't know why he was hooting like that. Police were already there, like 3-4 vans. There was an old dude looked about 70 odd with his revolver in his hand, gaping holes in his pants and his shirt and everything. I go, what happened? He goes, no, he heard it, came out and fired 3 warning shots. The criminals thought, okay, who the hell do you think you are? Went down and opened fire on him, and he dove behind his car as well. Then they'd like unloaded their clips. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but unloaded and drove off. So I'm thinking, geez, okay, this is quite hectic. But then after that, the whole neighborhood watch had they privatized the road essentially. They put a boom at the start and the end of the road. So it was quiet again for like, you know, the next week or so. So I go up to Hillcrest to go have supper with my then boss. And I'm driving back and I just check this long line of cars as you enter the road. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Driving in and police lights flashing. So the place I was renting at was like a cottage on a main house. So the guy I was renting from was there in the street. So I stopped the car, get out. I'm like, what the hell happened here now? He goes, no. So it was the one shooting before. Now there was a shooting again. They had broken into this guy's house. The cops were called, and they'd started shooting at the cops. The one guy got shot dead. The other two had jumped around the back and were now like at large, essentially in the neighborhood. So I was like, "Is this what KZN is like?" I'm here for a week. There's like two essential, one almost a killing, the second one was a killing, and then I'm just thinking, my wife's like, "You better leave that job. You better leave that area and come back to Cape Town."
And the sad reality, I mean, look, my wife worked at Westville 14 years, so was probably around in those time that you're talking about. The sad reality is this happens a lot. I used to love night shifts. It's just it's a different world. It's just such a different world. I was really fortunate. I worked Durban Central, so CBD for 6 years. Then I got transferred when I got promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. I went and worked in Pinetown for 6 years.
Oh, Pinetown's, when I was there, was bad. Very
No,
bad.
look, Durban was very different. All my shootings happened in Durban. Pinetown was a much bigger area to deal with. So you dealt with the richer community, and then you obviously had your Nazareth, which is your poverty areas. Very different. Yeah, lots of shootings.
Yeah. There's that place between Pinetown and Westville. You go down the dip. I forget what it's called. It's like a township on the right. The name is escaping me now.
Lamontville?
Is it? It might be Lamont. No. No, I almost want to say it's not Claremont. Is it not a Claremont?
Claremont, yeah, it's all clear.
Claremont's down there, yeah. That's also talk about things that happened. I mean, we can talk about this all day, but there was that video of the two security guards sitting in the car. They got shot up. They got killed and robbed for their weapons. I think they actually found the guys in Claremont, which is quite hectic.
Yeah, I think if you read the crime stats, you'll be horrified.
Particularly also Cleveland's. I don't know if you know the
yes.
Well,
my wife actually worked in. She's also Lieutenant Colonel, crime intelligence, and she was transferred to KwaMashu, where she worked for 4 years. I mean, it's
close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, she worked in hostels, and she worked to get to work. You drove into the township.
Yeah,
and she would quite happily drive along there. Off she goes.
I just got told stories because we used to drive with the guy that was like the trainer for the company. And then every time we would take that N2 to the South Coast, he's like, "Yeah, that's Cleveland's over there." And he's like telling me all these stats. And I was like, okay, I never go in there. But I went into them a lot. The thing about KZN is it depends what you're in these areas for, It's
Correct.
like I was there with because I used to be a civil engineer. I say I used to be because I don't design anymore. But I used to go to all these sites. I mean, KwaMashu. I was in Umlazi. I was like in all these places. No one ever bothers you.
No,
I mean, because you're there to help the community.
The biggest that's the biggest misconception of a lot of people is that areas are crime. No, the areas are made of community members who are friendly and cheerful and want the best for you. There are elements within communities that unfortunately, and there are elements within every community. I think there was a study done recently, quite a while ago. I think a criminal commits 96 offenses before they're actually caught.
Oh my goodness.
So, people have this misconception that there are, in certain areas, there are thousands of criminals. There's like 100 criminals just repetitively committing crimes. And why not if you're not caught? And our judicial system is perhaps not the world's best. For me, I always laugh. So the police will do the hard work of catching. I remember myself, you catch a criminal. You send them to court. The judicial system works. They actually go and the judge says, right, you're sentenced. I sentence you, a learned man, I sentence you for 15 years in jail. Okay, and he goes to jail. And then the Correctional Services Department releases you. So, but if the judge said 15 years, then why are you releasing him in 10 years? Or 5 years or 7 years? So I think there's often a great misconception between the three different systems, the three pillars that make up. The police always got blamed, so we always were.
Yeah, they always said the police need to do more, but it's like not the police doing the sentencing.
We don't sentence you, we take you to court. And the reason the prisons are overfull is because, well, there must be something working. And then the Correctional Service releases you.
Ahead of your supposed date, yeah. Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming through, Jason, and I really, I think it was. I definitely want to speak to Marcia now about the about getting your SA colors for jiu-jitsu. I think it's a necessary step.
It's definitely necessary. I mean, it's if you're an elite athlete, let's give those elite athletes credentials that says to the world that this is our best.
It's a pinnacle.
Then why not?
They had it in bodybuilding, so
we're giving kids 12 years old their junior colors. And
so why not?
Why aren't we giving our, like Luke, for instance, who's out there, smashing the world, wears his little South Africa emblem on, which is, and is proud of South Africa. And why isn't South Africa proud of him? Not the community of jiu-jitsu. But South Africa should be proud of him.
Yeah, well, they had it when I did bodybuilding. They gave you SA colors if you made it in certain federations. So why not jiu-jitsu? Hopefully, that's a question we'll get answered soon. So thanks, appreciate the time, Jason.
No,
and
thank you very much for having me.
Hopefully, see you on the mat soon again, wherever that may be. Maybe at an open mat or something.
100%.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Perfect.